There's a star out there in the constellation Cygnus, the Swan, about 1,400 light-years away from Earth. At first glance, through a telescope, it seems ordinary, just another diamond stitched into the endless black fabric of our sky. One of hundreds of billions scattered across the Milky Way. But this particular star refused to behave. Its light was not steady. It did not flicker the way stars usually do when a planet crosses in front of them. It dimmed and brightened in a way that made even the calmest astronomers lean forward in silence. Imagine watching a heartbeat skip. That's what it felt like, a cosmic pulse that didn't make sense. Scientists called it anomalous, but what they really meant was, we don't know what's happening. The star's light would fade dramatically, then return, then fade again, as if something vast and invisible were moving between us and it. But what? Dust clouds, swarms of comets, or something else entirely, something that no equation had prepared us for. For weeks, then months, telescopes around the world turned toward that quiet point in the sky. Computers translated its light into data, and that data into lines and graphs, waves that rose and fell like the breath of some sleeping giant. The more we looked, the stranger it became. There was no rhythm, no repeatable pattern. It was chaos, and yet there was something hypnotic about it. You couldn't look away. We've studied millions of stars, catalogued their temperatures, their chemical signatures, their lifespans, but this one was different. It was as though the universe had decided to write a sentence we didn't yet know how to read. Maybe it's easy to forget how fragile our understanding is. We talk about the cosmos as though it's mapped and measured, as though it's something we've mastered. But every now and then, a small anomaly appears in the data, and everything we think we know trembles a little. This was one of those moments, a reminder that even now, in an age of supercomputers and satellites, the sky still keeps its secrets. As the days passed, the scientific world divided itself into camps. Some said it must be dust, a cloud of fine microscopic particles drifting around the star. Others whispered that it could be a swarm of icy fragments, the remnants of shattered comets. But deep down, many couldn't help but imagine something grander. Could it be the shadow of an immense structure, something built, not born? The thought was quickly dismissed as science fiction, but it lingered, quietly, like a dream you can't quite shake. When you stare at the night sky, you're not just looking into space, you're looking into time. The light from that star began its journey long before the first humans ever walked the earth. Every photon that reaches your eyes tonight has been traveling for more than 1,000 years, crossing unimaginable distances through dust and emptiness, untouched, unbroken, unstoppable. And yet, in all that perfection, this one star stumbled. Its light faltered. It blinked like it was trying to say something. You can almost imagine it, a distant sun, surrounded by unseen forces, caught in a dance we can't yet name. Maybe it's struggling, maybe it's transforming, or maybe it's simply reminding us how small we are in the vastness of it all. Because somewhere out there, 1,400 light-years away, something is happening that we don't understand. And that, perhaps, is the most human feeling of all. The mix of fear and fascination that arises when the universe whispers, "Look closer." For centuries, we've built machines to catch starlight, to decode its rhythm, to translate the silence of space into something we can hold. But every now and then, the cosmos offers us a puzzle it refuses to solve. This was one of those times, an unsteady flame on the horizon of infinity. And as we watched, breath held, hearts steady, one thought echoed softly through the halls of every observatory. There is a language older than words. It moves not through air or ink, but through the quiet vacuum of space, a slow, patient stream of light. For billions of years, stars have been speaking in that language. Every flicker, every pulse, every subtle shift in color is a sentence in the cosmic story. The universe, in its own way, has always been whispering. We just had to learn how to listen. When you gaze at the night sky, it feels silent. But to an astronomer, it's a symphony. Each star hums in its own pitch, its light rising and falling in patterns far too complex for the naked eye. Through the lens of a telescope, that silence turns into data, waves and curves, brightness and decay, harmony and dissonance. To those who know how to read it, starlight is not just illumination. It's information. Light is the one messenger that never lies. It travels across unfathomable distances, crossing the cold dark between galaxies, brushing past ancient dust, bending around gravity's invisible hand, and finally, gently, lands in our telescopes, in our eyes, in our hearts. Each photon that touches your retina tonight began its journey centuries ago. It left the surface of a star long before you were born, long before cities glowed on Earth, long before humans even understood what stars truly were. And yet, here it is, completing its voyage in this very moment. You and that distant star are now connected by a thread of light that has crossed the deep time of the universe. There is something humbling in that thought, something almost sacred. Astronomers call this study spectroscopy, the art of decoding starlight. When a beam of light passes through a prism, it separates into a spectrum, revealing bands of color. But hidden within those colors are tiny, dark lines, the fingerprints of atoms: hydrogen, helium, iron, oxygen. Every element leaves a distinct mark in that rainbow. By studying those marks, scientists can tell what a star is made of, how hot it burns, how fast it spins, and even how far away it lives. It's as if every star sings a song, and the spectrum is its sheet music. Some stars hum softly in the cool red tones of iron and carbon. Others blaze in ultraviolet, fierce, young, and wild. And then there are those whose light flickers and wavers, pulsing in time with hidden rhythms deep within. These are the heartbeat stars, the ones whose brightness curves rise and fall in perfect cycles, not chaos, but cosmic breath. Imagine that, the entire sky, breathing in light. You can almost feel it, the soft rhythm of the cosmos, expanding and contracting, inhaling and exhaling through the ages. Every pulse of a star, every photon that finds its way to your eye, is part of that endless rhythm. When we first began mapping those pulses, we thought we were seeing randomness, noise, but over time, patterns emerged. The universe was not silent. It was singing in harmony. Astronomers found that stars, like people, have temperaments. Some are steady and calm, burning with quiet dignity for billions of years. Others are unpredictable, throwing tantrums of radiation, brightening and dimming in erratic fits. And then there are the mysterious ones, the ones whose light refuses to follow any known rhythm, whose pulses seem almost deliberate, like Morse code from the void. It was light, after all, that first revealed how deeply connected we are to the stars. The carbon in your bones, the oxygen in your lungs, the calcium in your teeth, all of it was forged in the heart of some ancient star that once burned, flickered, and finally exploded, scattering its light and its ashes into the dark. The atoms that make you once glowed in a stellar song. So when you look at a star, you're not just seeing into space, you're seeing into time. You're seeing into your own origins. That's what makes the patterns of light so hypnotic. They're not random twinkles on a dark canvas. They are signatures of creation. Each one tells a different story, a cosmic biography written in brightness. For centuries, humans only saw light as illumination, something that revealed the world around them. But once we learned to split it, to study its fingerprints, we discovered that light was the world's memory. Every beam that reaches us carries the story of where it came from, what it touched, what it passed through, what it lost, and what it became. Light is not just what allows us to see, it is what allows us to know. Even now, as you listen, countless photons are brushing against Earth, carrying with them messages from places beyond imagination. Some come from the heart of dying stars, some from the edges of galaxies still forming. Some are echoes of the Big Bang itself, the faint, ancient glow that has been traveling for nearly 14 billion years. When scientists map that cosmic background, they are, in a sense, listening to the first sound the universe ever made, a whisper frozen in time. And yet, for all its complexity, the message of light is simple. Everything is connected. Every flicker, every shimmer, every wavelength tells us that what happens somewhere in the universe eventually reaches somewhere else. Nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed. Maybe that's why light feels so comforting. It travels through absolute darkness, yet it never forgets where it came from. It carries warmth, even through emptiness. It bridges distances that no ship could ever cross, no matter how far we dream of going. You might not realize it, but your life is steeped in these invisible journeys. Every sunrise is the return of photons that have crossed the void between the sun and earth. Every color you see, the red of autumn leaves, the soft blue of twilight, is a note in the endless spectrum of starlight. You are surrounded by messages billions of years in the making. The next time you look at the night sky, you might notice how the stars seem to shimmer differently, not like cold points of light. Some are old and weary, their fuel nearly gone. Others are new, bursting with the fire of creation. Together, they form constellations, not just patterns of dots, but patterns of meaning. Stories written by ancient observers who, just like us, were trying to make sense of what they saw. And through all of it, there's one truth that humbles the soul. Light does not just reveal the universe. It reveals us. It shows us our curiosity, our hunger to understand, our ability to look beyond what we can touch and still feel connected to something infinitely far away, because somewhere in that shimmering distance, a story is unfolding. A star is pulsing, sending its light toward us. And if we listen closely enough, if we learn to read its rhythm, it might just tell us something about ourselves, something we forgot we were made of. There are stars that live like symphonies, grand, bright, burning through their lifetimes in blazing crescendo. And then there are those that end like whispers. When a massive star dies, it doesn't fade quietly into the dark. It collapses inward, folding its light, its heat, its very self, into something impossibly small. In that moment of death, something strange is born. A pulse, a rhythm, a heartbeat that refuses to stop. Imagine a sun 10 times larger than our own, burning furiously for millions of years. It shines, it gives, it dances with planets. And then, one day, its fuel runs out. The fire dims. Gravity, that patient sculptor, begins to pull everything inward. The core tightens, crushes, the outer layers explode outward in a blinding supernova, scattering cosmic dust across the universe. And at the center of that chaos, what remains is a tiny remnant, a neutron star. A teaspoon of this star's matter would weigh more than a mountain. Its atoms are so crushed that protons and electrons have fused into neutrons, matter compressed to the brink of imagination. The entire star, once the size of our sun, is now only about 20 kilometers wide. It spins, not gently like a planet, but thousands of times per second, dragging its magnetic field with it. From its poles, beams of radiation shoot outward like the beams of a cosmic lighthouse, sweeping through the darkness of space. We call them pulsars, the beating hearts of dead suns. Each pulse that reaches us is a note in the rhythm of the universe, like the steady tick of a celestial clock. These pulses arrive with unbelievable precision, some so regular that they rival the accuracy of atomic clocks on Earth. They are, quite literally, the heartbeat of the cosmos. If you could hear it, it might sound like a slow, distant drum, deep, steady, endless. A reminder that even in death there is persistence. That even after the brightest flame burns out, something continues to echo. But here's the thing. We didn't always know what they were. When the first pulsar signal was discovered in 1967 by a graduate student named Jocelyn Bell Bernal, the data looked strange. The radio telescope was picking up a signal that repeated every 1.3 seconds, too precise to be noise, too steady to be random. It was unlike anything they'd ever seen. For a brief, whimsical moment, they even labeled the signal LGM1, Little Green Men, because what else could produce such regular, rhythmic signals from deep space? Of course, it wasn't aliens. It was something far more poetic, the voice of a dying star, still speaking, still reaching out. It's easy to forget that stars are not eternal. They live, they change, they end. And yet, when you listen to a pulsar, it doesn't sound like an ending. It sounds like endurance, like a star that refuses to disappear quietly. The beams of light that spin out from pulsars aren't random flashes. They're messages written in time. Each rotation sweeps those beams across space. And if Earth happens to lie in their path, we see a pulse, blink, 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 perfectly timed, like the heartbeat of something immense and unseen. Some pulsars spin hundreds of times every second, others slow to just a few beats per minute. Yet each is a survivor, a remnant of something that once illuminated its corner of the universe. The pulse you detect tonight may have begun its journey long before humanity learned to make fire, and it continues to echo through the silence. Unbothered by our smallness, there's something deeply human about that. The idea that even when something collapses, it can leave behind rhythm, order in chaos, meaning in the void. When you think about it, we live our lives in pulses too. The beating of your heart, the rhythm of your breath, the the cycle of waking and sleeping. All of it is movement through time, a pattern carved into existence. The universe, in its grandest form, does the same. It breathes through stars. Some stars breathe slowly, swelling and shrinking over centuries. Others beat fast, like the flicker of a nerve, alive with energy. But no matter the pace, every star carries within it that fundamental pattern: expansion and collapse, giving and taking, shining and fading. The pulsar is just the final echo of that cycle, the last breath that lingers after a great life has burned away. If you close your eyes, you can almost feel it, that gentle pulse somewhere out there in the dark. It's so small, so faint, and yet so impossibly constant, like a memory that refuses to fade. And maybe that's why astronomers are so fascinated by them, because pulsars remind us that even in endings there can be beauty. Even in silence there can be rhythm. Every pulse is a promise that something once lived and still continues in another form. When you listen to the universe through radio telescopes, you begin to realize that space isn't quiet at all. It's alive with signals, flashes, bursts, whispers, each one a record of something happening somewhere in the great expanse of time. The heartbeats of neutron stars travel across billions of kilometers to find us. They brush past planets, dust clouds, and gas fields, carrying with them the story of a death that became a rebirth. And what's even more incredible is how precise they are. The most stable pulsars keep time so perfectly that scientists use them as cosmic clocks, tools to measure gravitational waves, test the limits of Einstein's theories, and even map the unseen fabric of spacetime itself. Think about that. A dead star, collapsed under its own weight, now helping humanity understand the living geometry of the cosmos. Even in death, it teaches. Even after it's burned away everything it had to give, it still illuminates something, not through light, but through rhythm. It's a lesson hidden in the cosmos that decay and creation are not opposites. They are partners in the same dance. The universe, in its quiet wisdom, never wastes energy. When something ends, something new begins, not in the same form, but in the same spirit, flickering for a moment between birth and death, trying to make sense of our own rhythm. There are stars that live quietly, their light soft and constant, like the slow breath of something eternal. And then there are others, the restless ones, that twist and crackle with energy so fierce it could tear atoms apart. Somewhere between those two extremes lies one of the strangest, most violent, and most magnetic mysteries the universe has ever created. They are called magnetars, the monsters with magnetic souls to the eye. They are just another faint flicker among the stars. But what they hold within is beyond comprehension. A magnetar is what happens when a massive star dies, not just dramatically, but chaotically, when gravity collapses a sun into a sphere of pure density, and something in that collapse twists the magnetic field into madness. If a neutron star is the quiet corpse of a supernova, then a magnetar is its restless spirit. Its magnetic field is so powerful that it could erase every credit card on Earth from halfway across the galaxy. A field so immense that if you stood just a few thousand kilometers away, the iron in your blood would twist toward it. It's magnetism on a scale that rewrites the meaning of force 100 trillion times stronger than the field that holds your compass steady. And yet, they are silent most of the time, hidden, waiting. Astronomers sometimes call them sleeping dragons, because that's what they are: enormous, dangerous, but deceptively still. Their surfaces are crusted with iron and neutron matter, hardened under unimaginable pressure. Beneath that shell, magnetic energy coils like tensioned wire, waiting for the moment it can no longer contain itself. When that happens, the magnetar cracks. Its crust shifts and fractures in what scientists call a starquake, a shudder so powerful it can release more energy in a single second than our sun will in 100,000 years. The burst shoots across space as gamma rays, waves of pure destruction, racing through the dark. And somewhere, light years away, a satellite in Earth's orbit detects a faint tremor in its sensors, a whisper from a monster that stirred in its sleep. You can almost imagine it, a vast, dark star twisting in silence, and then, with no warning, exhaling a flare that would vaporize a world if one were near enough to see it. And then, just as quickly, it goes quiet again. That's the rhythm of a magnet. Rage and silence, creation and collapse, violence followed by stillness so complete it feels almost sacred. We first discovered them by accident. In the late 1970s, satellites designed to detect nuclear tests picked up bursts of radiation that didn't match anything human. They came from deep space, from no direction in particular, flashing for a moment and then disappearing. It took years to understand what we were seeing, stars breaking themselves open from the inside. Even now, every time one flares, it reminds astronomers of how fragile stability really is. A magnetar is the embodiment of tension. Everything in it is straining against itself. The magnetic field wants to twist. The crust wants to hold. Eventually, something gives, and when it does, the universe trembles. If you could stand near one and somehow survive, you would see light behaving differently. Space itself would shimmer as particles spiral along invisible lines of force. Radiation would bend around you, crackling and humming like the air before a storm, and through it all there would be a feeling of pressure, not from gravity, but from magnetism, pulling at every molecule, tugging at every thought. It's hard to imagine something so violent existing in such silence. But that's what makes magnetars so haunting. They are both destroyer and poet, a fusion of rage and grace. In their rare moments of outburst, they reshape the cosmos around them. Their flares can distort nearby space-time, ignite surrounding gas, and send ripples through the interstellar medium waves that will keep traveling long after the magnetar has returned to sleep. You could say they are the universe's emotional outbursts, brief, uncontrollable, and unforgettable. And yet, they're not evil. They're not even wild. They simply are. They exist because the laws of physics demand that extremes must happen. If there are gentle stars, there must also be furious ones. If there is light, there must also be the fire that forges it, in that sense. Magnetars are a reflection of us. Think about it. We, too, hold energy within. We build tension over time, quietly. We contain it, manage it, until something deep inside us shifts, and suddenly it breaks open, not to destroy, but to release. Anger, love, creativity, grief, they all come from the same place. Magnetic pressure waiting for movement. A magnetar doesn't apologize for its outbursts. It doesn't hide from them. It simply burns and rests, burns and rests. It is, in its own way, the most honest star in the sky. Maybe that's why they fascinate us. They're reminders that chaos isn't always the opposite of peace. Sometimes it's what makes peace possible. Without release, there can be no calm. Without collapse, no renewal. The universe teaches that lesson in many ways, but few are as eloquent as the Magnetar. To this day, astronomers can only identify about 30 known magnetars in our galaxy. 30 out of hundreds of billions of stars, each one an anomaly, a question mark written in radiation. And every few years, one of them wakes. When it does, we feel it. Instruments on Earth register the flash. Scientists rush to trace its source. And for a few brief hours, we watch as something unimaginable becomes visible. Then it's gone again. The dragon falls back asleep, its fire cooling beneath layers of silence. Somewhere out there in the infinite dark, these magnetic souls are turning, whispering, and waiting, and maybe, just maybe, one night, their song will reach us again. There's a star out there, glowing in the right shoulder of the constellation Orion. You've probably seen it before, even if you didn't know its name. On a clear winter night, when the air is still and the world feels briefly infinite, you can look up and find it, a soft orange spark against the velvet dark. It's called Betelgeuse, and for thousands of years it has been a marker in the sky. A fixed light that sailors, poets, and dreamers alike have used to orient themselves. But a few years ago, something strange happened. Betelgeuse began to fade. At first, it was subtle, a dimming so gentle that most wouldn't have noticed. But astronomers noticed. Instruments tuned to measure the brightness of stars detected something undeniable. The great red shoulder of Orion was losing its fire. Slowly, steadily, its light began to wane. And in that fading, the world's imagination ignited. For the first time in centuries, millions of eyes turned toward the same patch of sky. Headlines asked if Betelgeuse was about to explode, if humanity might soon witness a supernova brighter than the full moon. Scientists debated, models were refined, telescopes aligned. And beneath all that noise, there was something quieter, a collective sense of awe, tinged with an almost human kind of grief. Because if Betelgeuse truly was dying, then we were watching a farewell playing out in real time, across the gulf of 600 light years. Think about that. The light you see from Betelgeuse tonight began its journey around the year 1400, long before telescopes, before science as we know it, before the language we're speaking now even existed in its modern form. When you look at Betelgeuse, you are looking into history. And when that history began to dim, we couldn't help but wonder, were we witnessing an ending? Betelgeuse isn't an ordinary star. It's a red supergiant, one of the largest kinds of stars the universe can make, before gravity pulls the curtain closed. If you replaced our sun with Betelgeuse, its surface would reach past the orbit of Jupiter. The scale is difficult to comprehend. A single star that could swallow our entire solar system, and yet it burns with a tenderness that looks almost fragile. Its surface ripples like a slow-motion ocean, bubbles of plasma rising and falling in cycles of light and shadow. It is ancient, heavy, tired, and still magnificent. Every star has a life cycle. It is born from clouds of dust, gathers itself through gravity, and shines by fusing hydrogen into helium, the simplest of elements, into something more complex. Over millions, sometimes billions of years, that balance between outward heat and inward collapse defines its life. But eventually, even stars run out of fuel. And when that happens to a giant, the results are cataclysmic. For Betelgeuse, that end is approaching. The dimming we saw could be a sign of that, or it could be a breath, a pause, a brief veil of dust drawn across its glowing face. For months, astronomers watched as the star's brightness fell to nearly 40% of its normal intensity. Some thought it was the prelude to the inevitable, a star about to die. Others suspected something more mundane, yet still profound, that Betelgeuse had sneezed out clouds of its own matter, which drifted in front of it like cosmic smoke, blocking its light dot. In the end, that's what we think happened. A colossal convulsion on the star's surface threw out a plume of gas and dust that cooled and condensed into a temporary shadow. When that shadow cleared, Betelgeuse began to brighten again. The dragon had exhaled and then rested once more. But even knowing that, something changed in the way people looked at it. Because, for a brief moment, the universe reminded us that even the brightest constants can flicker. Is this how a star says goodbye? That question lingered, not just for scientists, but for everyone who watched that dimming unfold. There was a strange intimacy to it. Stars usually change on timescales far beyond human experience. They are the background, the unchanging points of reference against which we measure our small lives. To see one visibly alter itself within a single year, that was unsettling and beautiful all at once. It felt like the cosmos had blinked when Betelgeuse dims. It isn't just a loss of brightness. It's a story of transformation written in light. Inside that vast, swollen body, helium is fusing into carbon, oxygen, and heavier elements. The core is contracting, the outer layers expanding and cooling. Pressure and gravity are locked in their eternal argument, the same one that defines every heartbeat in the universe. For now, Betelgeuse holds on, but when that balance finally breaks, it will go supernova, and when it does, it will not go quietly. For a few brief weeks, Betelgeuse will shine as brightly as an entire galaxy. If it happened in our lifetime, you could walk outside at night and see it, glowing in the sky like a second moon. Shadows would stretch in directions they never had before. Ancient myths would be reborn. Every culture would look up and feel that same mixture of fear and reverence, the recognition that something older and larger than ourselves has changed. But there's another layer to that image, one that feels more personal, because when you think about it, stars don't really die in the way we imagine. They transform. A supernova is destruction, yes, but it's also renewal. It's the only way heavy elements are spread into the universe. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen you breathe. All of it came from stars that once dimmed, then exploded. Betelgeuse, in its eventual death, will become part of countless new worlds, new suns, maybe even new lives. It's strange, isn't it? How endings and beginnings share the same light. Sometimes I wonder if that's why Betelgeuse captures us so deeply, because it mirrors the cycles we live through ourselves. We fade, we flare, we release parts of ourselves into the world, and those pieces become part of something else. The universe doesn't waste energy. And maybe that means nothing in us is ever truly lost. When astronomers study Betelgeuse, they aren't just measuring luminosity and spectra. They're watching the slow unfolding of a cosmic emotion. Every fluctuation tells a story of struggle and balance, of forces both fighting and surrendering. And maybe, in some quiet way, that's what draws us in. Because within that struggle, we see our own reflection. Think of the moments when you felt yourself dim, when something in you felt exhausted, stretched beyond its limits, when the fire that once drove you seemed to flicker. You might have feared that it was the end of something, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe you were just becoming something new. Betelgeuse reminds us that even the mightiest light can falter without losing its purpose. That dimming doesn't always mean dying. Sometimes it means transformation. The star's surface trembles, cools, and reshapes itself, preparing for whatever comes next. It breathes in cycles of brilliance and shadow, and through it all, it remains luminous in its imperfection. If you close your eyes and imagine standing on a world orbiting that star, you would see a sky bathed in deep orange. The light would fall soft and thick, turning the surface of your planet into an ocean of rust-colored dusk. The horizon would tremble with heat, and the star itself would dominate the heavens, immense, scarred, magnificent. You'd feel its presence not as a distant point, but as a living, breathing giant, older than anything you could comprehend. And if that light began to fade, you'd know that something momentous was beginning. That's the paradox of Betelgeuse. Even in fading, it commands attention. Even in quiet, it speaks volumes. It tells us that beauty can coexist with fragility, that strength doesn't mean permanence, and that even decay has its own kind of radiance. Astronomers continue to watch it every night, tracking its cycles, measuring its pulse like doctors tending to a patient whose heartbeat is written in starlight. They know that someday, maybe tomorrow, maybe 100,000 years from now, Betelgeuse will finally reach its limit. The core will collapse. The outer layers will rush inward, rebound, and explode outward at 1/10 the speed of light. A shockwave of energy will sweep through the interstellar medium, carving new paths through the dust and gas that cradle future suns. And somewhere, light years away, a new generation of astronomers will study those remnants. A glowing nebula expanding like a cosmic flower, and they'll say, "Here lies Betelgeuse." And within that nebula, they'll find the seeds of new stars. It's a strange comfort, isn't it, to know that even when something magnificent ends, it gives birth to something else. Maybe that's why the night sky feels so peaceful, because every point of light we see is both a beginning and an ending, both memory and promise. Betelgeuse is simply the one that reminds us most vividly of that truth. As you lie beneath the stars, breathing in the quiet, think of that dimming giant, still burning, still beautiful, still waiting. Its story isn't over yet, and neither, perhaps, is yours. There's a moment in the life of every star when the quiet finally breaks. Not abruptly, not with violence, though the universe will remember it that way. It begins softly, with a whisper of imbalance deep within the core, where the weight of everything that has ever burned begins to turn inward. A star breathes in after eons of breathing out, and somewhere, unseen, the last heartbeat begins. Imagine that moment, the final breath of a star that has lived for millions. perhaps billions of years. Its light has traveled across epochs, watched worlds rise and vanish, seen galaxies drift apart, and now, deep inside its radiant body, the balance falters. Gravity, the oldest force, begins to reclaim what it once gave. The fusion that once held it back, the eternal push against collapse, sputters and fades. There is a silence that follows, so complete that even light itself seems to hesitate in that silence. The core of the star folds inward, compressing to a point so dense that atoms themselves are crushed. The outer layers, still falling, crash into that unyielding core and rebound. What follows defies human comprehension, a surge of power that releases in a single instant more energy than the sun will emit in its entire lifetime, a supernova, but from afar. Before the shockwave reaches us, it begins as a flicker, a spark that brightens, then swells into something that outshines entire galaxies. For a few weeks, it will burn brighter than 100 billion suns, and then, just as swiftly, it will fade, leaving behind either a neutron star, a black hole, or a cloud of shimmering debris. The end of a star is not quiet, but it is deeply graceful in its inevitability. There's something almost merciful about it, the way destruction gives birth to creation. The elements that were forged in that stellar heart are scattered into space, carried by invisible winds, to become part of nebulae, planets, oceans, and life. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen you breathe, all of it was made in moments like this. In the final breath of a dying star, it's strange to think that everything familiar, everything you have ever touched, felt, or known, was once part of a catastrophe so immense that it lit up half the universe. We are built from destruction. Our calmest moments are rooted in chaos that happened long before us, but perhaps that's the lesson. The stars have been whispering all along that endings are not the opposite of life, but its continuation in another form. When a star dies, it doesn't disappear. It transforms, scattering its pieces into a future it will never see. For a brief instant, when the collapse reaches its peak, time itself seems to hold its breath. If you could stand close enough, though, of course, you never could, you'd feel that pause ripple through space. The light curves. The shock front hesitates. The universe takes in the enormity of what's about to happen. And then, all at once, the explosion that isn't chaos. It's choreography. Every atom knows its place in the dance. Hydrogen, once the simplest of things, becomes iron, nickel, gold. A cascade of fusion ignites outward, each layer feeding the next in a chain reaction that redefines matter itself. The star that was once steady, constant, nurturing, now tears itself apart to give everything it has back to the cosmos. When the light finally reaches Earth, centuries or millennia later, we see only the echo, a shimmer in the night sky, a pulse of brilliance that tells us something ended long ago. Yet even that distant echo stirs something in us, a recognition, a remembering, because we too are made of these endings. Every cell in your body carries the story of a supernova. You are the quiet aftermath of a stellar explosion shaped into consciousness. The atoms that compose your heart once belonged to stars that lived, burned, collapsed, and breathed their final light into the cosmos. So when you look up and see the remnants of a supernova, a nebula glowing like a ghost, you're looking at your own ancestry. There's something deeply humbling in that, and something empowering too. Because if the universe can turn destruction into beauty, if it can take the ashes of stars and sculpt them into thought, into love, into awareness, then perhaps no ending in your own life is ever truly final either. Think about it. The moments you thought would break you, the losses, the goodbyes, the times you felt yourself collapsing, maybe they were not endings at all, but transformations. Maybe every time you've fallen apart, you've been releasing elements that the future will need. The stars don't fear their deaths. They surrender to them. They give everything, and in doing so, they ensure that something else will rise. There's a beauty in that surrender, a quiet courage, because it's not resignation, it's trust. The star trusts the universe enough to collapse into it, to become part of something greater. And the universe, in turn, trusts the star's death to build new life. It's a partnership, an ancient rhythm of destruction and creation that has played out billions of times in countless galaxies without ever repeating itself exactly the same way twice. If you listen closely, in the silence between the pulses of your own breath, you might feel that rhythm too. The inhale of creation, the exhale of release. The final breath of a star is the same as the first breath of a new beginning. Some supernovae are so bright that they briefly rival the combined light of the entire Milky Way. Yet, for all their brilliance, they are fleeting, gone in a cosmic blink. That transience is what makes them sacred. The star knows that its greatest act will be its last, and it doesn't resist. It expands, collapses, bursts, and fades, each phase as essential as the one before it. Maybe that's what real peace is, not the absence of change, but the acceptance of it. Astronomers study supernovae not only to understand how stars die, but to understand how the universe recycles itself. Every explosion paints the sky with new possibilities, shockwaves that compress nearby clouds of gas, triggering the birth of new stars. Death creates pressure. Pressure creates life. It's a cycle that never truly ends. In this way, the universe breathes, slowly, deeply, endlessly, and you, sitting here, listening, are part of that breath. You are one inhale in the cosmic rhythm, one moment of awareness in the long unfolding of time. When you look up at the night sky, you're not separate from it. You're seeing the atoms that once burned in distant suns reflected back at you through your own eyes. The light of a supernova, filtered through countless years and endless space, landing softly on your skin. You're not observing the universe, you're participating in it. Somewhere, right now, another star is reaching its end. Its core trembles. Its light begins to flicker. And soon, that final breath will come, an explosion that will send its story racing across the cosmos. It may take thousands of years before that light reaches us, but it will. It always does. And when it does, someone else, on some other night, will look up and see that sudden brightness in the sky and wonder what it means. They won't know that you were thinking about this moment now, that you too were once part of the same pattern of curiosity and awe. But that's how the universe works. It connects moments that will never meet. A star dies, a human wonders, and somewhere in between, meaning is created. The final breath of a star is not a tragedy. It's a gift, a cosmic act of generosity so vast that it defies words. The universe doesn't mourn. It remembers. It carries those fragments forward, scattering them like seeds. And in time, those seeds will bloom as new stars, new worlds, new chances. Maybe that's what you're doing too. Scattering pieces of yourself into tomorrow's possibilities, so the next time you see a faint glow in the distance, remember, it might be the light of something that no longer exists, yet somehow still gives. There is no real death in the universe. Only transformation, only exchange, only breath. The stars inhale, they exhale, and we, for a fleeting instant, are part of that same sacred rhythm. So let yourself breathe. Let the old parts of you collapse and the new ones ignite. You're made of stars that died beautifully, and maybe, just maybe, you're meant to do the same. When the light finally fades, it doesn't vanish all at once. It trembles, almost reluctantly, like the last ember of a dying fire, glowing faintly, resisting the darkness that waits to claim it. The star, once a roaring furnace of creation, now folds in upon itself. Everything it ever was, every layer of flame, gas, and gravity, begins to collapse inward. The universe holds its breath, watching quietly. You can almost feel that stillness, that strange calm that comes before something unknowable is born. The explosion has ended. The shock waves have drifted into the infinite. And now, what remains is not motion, but surrender. The star's heart, crushed under the unbearable weight of its own gravity, no longer shines. Instead, it turns inward, tighter and denser, until even light, that restless traveler, cannot find a way out. The moment the light is trapped, a boundary forms, a horizon, not of land or sea, but of reality itself. Astronomers call it the event horizon, the last possible edge of knowing, the line where everything becomes silence. You could imagine it, the moment when light, the universe's oldest language, simply stops. It bends, it slows, it stretches thin like a sigh, fading into memory, and then it is gone. If you could stand nearby, though you never could, you might see the world around that place twist in ways that defy all sense. Time itself begins to flow differently. What was once a second might stretch into eternity. What was once movement becomes stillness. In that strange gravity, everything known, even the rules of existence, begins to dissolve. A black hole is not born with noise or fire, but with an almost sacred quiet. It's not destruction. It's not death. It's transformation, the deepest kind the universe allows. All the energy, the mass, the history of a star, folded into something infinitely small and infinitely dense. You could fit the mass of millions of Earths into a point no bigger than a grain of sand. Try to imagine that, not as a number, not as data, but as feeling. The feeling of being pulled inward, gently but irresistibly, toward something that has no shape, no color, no light, just gravity, pure and unending. The strange thing is, from far away, a black hole doesn't look frightening. It looks calm, a perfect sphere of darkness. Wrapped in a halo of glowing light, the accretion disk matter swirling at near light speeds, burning as it falls. It's chaos, but from a distance, it looks peaceful, almost graceful, like a candle slowly burning out in the wind. As you drift closer, though, reality begins to stretch. Space is no longer the same in every direction. time begins to drag behind you, each second stretching thinner and thinner, as though you're being pulled not through distance, but through existence itself. The closer you get, the slower you move in the eyes of the universe. Someone watching from afar would see you freeze, suspended forever on the edge of the event horizon, the border between being and nothing. But from your perspective, you'd keep falling. You'd cross that invisible line without even realizing it. And once you did, everything, stars, galaxies, the universe itself, would fall behind you. Light can no longer reach you. Space no longer has meaning. Time becomes something else entirely. It stops being a river and becomes a sea, still and infinite. You wouldn't feel it as an ending. You'd feel it as silence, the kind that exists between heartbeats, between thoughts, between what was and what will be. Sometimes I think the universe created black holes as mirrors, not of light, but of meaning. Because when you look into that darkness, you aren't just seeing what remains of a star. You're seeing what happens when everything lets go, when resistance ends, when even brilliance surrenders to stillness. There's something almost human in that. The quiet acceptance that follows chaos. The peace that only comes after everything else has burned away. You might wonder, where does it all go? The star's light, its matter, its story. Does it disappear forever? Or does it pass into another kind of space, one we can't yet perceive? Some physicists believe black holes may be portals to new beginnings, that what falls in might one day emerge somewhere else, reborn. Others think everything simply ends there, information lost forever, erased from the fabric of the cosmos. But perhaps both are true. Perhaps in the language of the universe, ending and beginning are the same word spoken in different tones. It's strange to imagine that inside a black hole, all the laws that hold the universe together collapse. Space curves infinitely, time folds. And at the center, the singularity lies something the human mind was never built to understand. A point where mathematics, physics, and logic fall silent. We don't know what happens there. We might never know. And maybe that's the point. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to be witnessed quietly, reverently, like watching the night sky and realizing how small you are, and yet how connected you feel to everything it holds. There's a strange comfort in that darkness, a serenity in knowing that even the brightest stars end not with chaos, but with stillness. That everything that burns eventually cools. Everything that shines eventually softens. And in that quiet, something new is always waiting to emerge. The universe doesn't waste. It transforms. The black hole, for all its mystery, is not a void, but a womb. A place where the universe reclaims its own essence and begins again. Unseen, and maybe, in some small way, we're like that too. We live brightly for a time, we expand, we collapse, and in the end, what remains is something weightless, timeless, something beyond measure. Perhaps that's why black holes feel so familiar to us. They remind us of endings, but also of release, the letting go of everything we can no longer hold. So, as the last light of that distant star fades, let yourself drift with it. Feel the pull, not as fear, but as calm. You're not falling. You're simply moving closer to silence, the kind that doesn't erase, but renews. The kind that holds the echoes of all that ever was. The universe breathes out slowly. The light has become shadow. And yet, within that shadow, something infinite waits. When the darkness settles, there's a stillness that feels almost eternal. The violent burst, the folding of time, the collapse of everything that was, all of it fades into a soft, endless quiet. Space seems empty again. Yet, within that silence, something delicate begins to stir. Not light, not sound, but the smallest whisper of renewal. The remnants of the star drift outward, fragments of its body scattered through the void. Dust and gas, once part of a brilliant sun, now float freely across the galaxy. They shimmer faintly, like the ghost of a flame that refuses to die completely. These remnants carry within them the memory of creation: carbon, oxygen, iron, calcium, the same building blocks that once burned in the heart of a living star. You could almost imagine each particle as a message written in starlight, waiting to be read by new worlds. It's strange, isn't it? How something so massive, so powerful, can end, and yet not truly disappear. The universe doesn't believe in endings the way we do. It takes the pieces and begins again, quietly, patiently. The star's ashes drift for eons, pulled by gravity, swept into clouds of dust so vast they could swallow entire solar systems. Over time, those clouds begin to glow, gently, faintly, as if remembering what it felt like to burn. And from those glowing clouds, new stars are born. New light, new beginnings. It's the universe's way of breathing. Collapse, silence, renewal. Every atom that was once part of that dying star becomes part of something else. Another sun, another planet, maybe even another heartbeat. Because everything that exists, you, me, the ground beneath your feet, was once dust from an ancient explosion. The iron in your blood was forged in a dying sun. The calcium in your bones, the carbon in your breath, the gold that glitters in a ring or a star, all of it once belonged to something that lived and died among the stars. You are made of stardust, not in a poetic way, but in a literal, scientific, breathtakingly real way. Every cell in your body carries the signature of a cosmic event that happened billions of years before you ever existed. When you breathe, you're moving molecules that once passed through the lungs of stars. When you think, the electrical signals that fire across your neurons are powered by the same elements that once illuminated galaxies. The universe didn't just give rise to you, it became you. So when we look at the night sky, we're not looking out, we're looking in. The space between stars isn't just distance, it's memory. The memory of what we once were and what we will be again. And in that realization, something softens. The loneliness of existence dissolves a little, because you begin to understand that you are not separate from the universe. You are its expression, its echo, its continuation. The silence after a star's death isn't empty. It's full of potential, of possibility, of waiting. It's the silence of soil before a seed sprouts. It's the pause between waves. It's the quiet before a new song begins. The universe rests for a moment, gathering itself before exhaling into creation once more. And as it does, those particles drift across light years of distance. Some join together, forming new worlds around newborn stars. Some become the icy cores of comets, carrying water, the essence of life, across cosmic deserts. And some, After unimaginable journeys, settle on planets like ours, on Earth, in oceans, in clouds, in you. The same dust that once circled another sun now resides in your skin, your bones, your heartbeat. There's something profoundly comforting in that, isn't there? To know that even destruction serves a purpose, that nothing is ever truly lost. Even in the most violent deaths of stars, the universe finds a way to recycle beauty. It doesn't mourn the end. It transforms it. The ashes of one world become the foundation of another. The silence of one era becomes the song of the next. And maybe that's the lesson, written across the stars, that endings aren't the opposite of beginnings. They are the soil in which beginnings grow. When something fades, something else quietly rises to take its place. Just like you, how every ending in your life, every heartbreak, every silence, has made room for something new. Growth is never loud. It happens softly in the quiet spaces between what was and what will be. So, as we float here, in the quiet aftermath of a star's death, maybe you can feel that connection, the strange, invisible thread that links you to everything that ever was. The atoms of your hands might have once belonged to a long-forgotten sun. The breath you just took might carry remnants of another world. You are the continuation of an ancient story, one that began long before time had a name. It's humbling, but also freeing, because it means nothing is ever truly gone. Not the stars, not the moments you've lost, not the people you've loved. Everything transforms, reappears, reshapes itself in new forms, new colors, new lives. The same stardust that built galaxies now beats quietly inside your chest, and in the end, maybe that's what the universe has been whispering all along. That destruction is not cruelty, but renewal. That silence is not emptiness, but preparation. That the universe doesn't end, it breathes. It exhales stars and inhales silence. And in that eternal rhythm, everything, every life, every dream, every heartbeat finds its place again. So when you look up tonight and you see the faint shimmer of distant stars, remember they are not far from you. They are the past and future of your own being, glowing softly in the dark. Their light may take millions of years to reach you, but it's a reminder that connection is timeless, that everything you are, everything you will ever be, was once born from fire, and will one day return to light. And as the universe falls quiet again, there's peace in knowing that you are part of its endless cycle, that you, too, will one day become part of that silence, that dust, that shimmer between the stars, not gone, not forgotten, just transformed. After the silence comes warmth again, not the warmth of fire or touch, but the warmth of becoming, the quiet stirring of something that is about to exist for the first time. Imagine drifting backward through time, past the galaxies and their spiraling arms, past the glowing dust of dying stars, past even the dark stretch where no stars yet shine, until there is only the faint hum of energy and the newborn breath of the universe. It was not light yet, not fully, only the whisper of it. The universe, still young, was a sea of darkness filled with particles that had not yet learned to become hydrogen, helium, a soft scattering of simple elements, the alphabet of creation. They floated in silence, waiting, stretching across space that was still finding its shape. And then, slowly, almost shyly, gravity began to weave. It pulled the scattered pieces toward one another, folding space like gentle hands gathering silk. You could say this was the universe's first memory of itself. The moment when nothing decided to become something. When the void, so still for so long, began to shimmer from within. There were no galaxies yet, no planets, no watchers, just clouds of gas collapsing, compressing, heating, until they could no longer stay silent. Until, finally, they ignited the first stars. The first fires that broke the darkness. They must have burned with a kind of brilliance we can hardly imagine now, enormous, hot, and brief. The first lights to ever exist after the birth of everything. Their glow stretched across the emptiness, turning the invisible into something radiant. For the first time, the universe had a heartbeat, a rhythm of fusion, of warmth, of light being born and traveling outward. Each star was like a lantern hung in eternity, declaring, "I am." These first stars were not like the ones we see today. They were giants, made almost entirely of hydrogen and helium, untainted by heavier elements. They lived fast, burned fiercely, and died young. Their light was pure, untouched by dust, the clean, white fire of creation itself. When they finally died, their deaths seeded the cosmos with the first traces of heavier elements, carbon, oxygen, iron, the essential ingredients for everything that would come later. From their ashes, the second generation of stars would form. And from those planets, and from those, life. It's hard to imagine, isn't it, that the night sky, the one you see when you look up now, is just an echo of that first light. Every shimmer, every distant star, every glowing nebula carries within it a memory of those ancient fires. You're not just looking at stars. You're looking at the story of the universe, learning how to shine. Close your eyes for a moment and picture it, the cosmic dawn. Space itself glowing softly, not from reflection, but from creation. Each spark of light marking a new beginning. The first stars forming constellations that no eye would ever see. Their light traveling endlessly, crossing time to someday fall gently upon your eyes. You could almost think of it as a mirror. The universe, in those early days, was becoming aware of itself. The way you might wake from a deep sleep and realize, I exist. And just like that, creation began to build upon itself, layering time, matter, and memory. Each new generation of stars was a retelling of that first moment, a new version of the same old story, a cycle of ignition, brilliance, and transformation. And if you listen closely enough, you can still hear it, the faint hum left over from that beginning. Scientists call it the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of creation. It's the universe's oldest light, still traveling, still whispering the story of its birth into every corner of space. It's everywhere, woven into everything, including you, because the same elements, those first stars forged the carbon, the oxygen, the iron, are now inside you. In your cells, your breath, your heartbeat. You are, in a way, the continuation of that first dawn. The universe did not stop creating when it made galaxies. It kept going, refining, evolving, until it made consciousness, the ability to look back and wonder. You are the cosmos, aware of itself. It's humbling to think about how far that light has traveled to find you. 13 billion years across expanding space, through countless transformations, through the births and deaths of worlds. Yet somehow, here it is, brushing softly against your eyes, as gentle as a memory. The light from the first stars, the first stories ever told in the language of fire, and in that light there is something eternal. A promise, perhaps, that no matter how dark things become, creation always finds a way to begin again. That even after collapse, after silence, after nothingness, there will always be light waiting to return. The same law that guided the first stars guides everything still: transformation, renewal, becoming. So, when you look up and see the stars tonight, know this: you are not gazing at something distant. You are looking at your own origin, reflected through the universe's memory. You are seeing what once was, and what still is, within you. Every flicker of light in the night sky is a reminder that creation never truly ended. It just changed form. And maybe, if you let that thought settle, if you breathe slowly, letting the silence of space fill you, you can feel that ancient warmth returning. The warmth of those first fires, still burning somewhere inside you. The same light that once shattered the darkness is still here, still alive, still glowing quietly in every heartbeat, because the universe never truly grew cold. It simply learned how to hold both darkness and light in the same breath. And so have you. Light filled the darkness, and with it came the first patterns. The universe was no longer a quiet ocean of gas. It was beginning to shape itself. The first stars, enormous and blazing, gathered into clusters, and those clusters began to pull together under gravity's gentle insistence. What was once scattered became connected. The cosmos was learning the language of structure. If you could stand there, not as a body, but as awareness, you would see the vast filaments of light stretching like rivers through darkness. Each point a star, each thread a promise of galaxies yet to form. The universe, only a few 100 million years old, was already beginning to dream of complexity. This was the era of firsts. The first stars had burned, died, and scattered their ashes across the void. Those ashes, carbon, oxygen, iron, became seeds for what would follow. The second generation of stars formed from this enriched material, smaller, steadier, and capable of living longer. Around them, gas cooled and condensed, forming the first galaxies, shimmering islands of light adrift in an endless night. And so, slowly, the cosmos began to resemble what we know today. The Milky Way itself was once one of those newborn galaxies, swirling faintly amid a sea of others, forming arms of light that would someday cradle billions of suns. But it's easy to forget what all of this really means. We talk about galaxies as if they are distant, separate things, like pictures in a book. But they are part of a continuous story, one that flows directly into you. The hydrogen that burned in those first stars, the metals that formed in their cores, the dust that drifted from their deaths, all of it traveled through space for billions of years, until some of it gathered here. Around a small yellow star we call the sun. You are breathing the echoes of that journey right now. Every breath contains atoms forged in a long-dead star. Every heartbeat is powered by the same physics that once ignited the first light. You are made of the same ingredients, obeying the same laws, part of the same unfolding. It's strange, isn't it, how something so vast could also be so personal. The same universe that stretches across billions of light years is also the one behind your closed eyes, the one that moves through your veins. It doesn't stop at the edge of the sky. It continues through you, as if you were its latest experiment in consciousness. The first stars didn't know they were building the future. They didn't know that their lives would create the possibility for oceans, mountains, trees, and thought. Yet they burned anyway, beautifully, fully, without hesitation. Maybe there's something to learn in that creation doesn't need to know its outcome to have meaning, that even the smallest spark in the right conditions can start a universe. The galaxies that followed were not random. They formed along invisible lines, cosmic filaments woven by gravity, like the threads of an unseen web. Where those threads intersected, matter gathered. Galaxies bloomed like bright flowers at the crossroads of the universe. Even chaos, it seems, has a quiet kind of order. And as the universe expanded, the light of the first stars began to fade. Their brilliance dimmed behind layers of dust and distance, leaving behind only traces, the afterglow of what once was. Yet, even in their absence, their influence remained. They had changed the universe forever, turning it from darkness into radiance, from simplicity into complexity. If you could see the universe then and now, side by side, you'd notice something remarkable. In the beginning, it was all energy and potential, vast, formless, waiting. Now, it's full of structure and memory. Every galaxy, every atom, every living being is a record of that transformation. The universe, in its own way, remembers everything, and so do you. Somewhere in your bones, in the carbon that shapes your body, in the oxygen that fills your lungs, lies the memory of that first light. You don't have to believe it, you can feel it. The warmth that rises when you stand under sunlight. The quiet sense of belonging you feel when you look at the stars. These are not coincidences, they are resonances, echoes of a shared origin. The story of the first stars is not a distant myth. It's the story of your own becoming. The same process that turned hydrogen into light also turned stardust into life. You are not separate from the universe. You are one of its expressions, an unfolding piece of its eternal experiment in awareness. And when you think about that, really think about it, something in you softens. The need to rush fades. The urge to measure time against the clock loses its grip, because suddenly you understand you've already been here since the beginning. You've already witnessed the first light. Because it lives in you. Every moment, every thought, every heartbeat is an echo of that first ignition, the moment the universe decided to awaken from silence and become, and maybe, just maybe, that means you, too, are still becoming, still igniting, still unfolding into your own light. The universe never stands still. Not for a moment, not even in the spaces that seem empty or silent. Every atom, every photon, every drifting wisp of cosmic dust is part of a motion so vast that even time bends to follow it. Everything that is always in the act of becoming something else. You can almost feel it if you slow down enough. The quiet pull beneath everything. The endless cycle of rise and fall, of forming and dissolving, of creation folding gently into destruction, and destruction folding back into creation. It's easy to imagine the universe as something that was made long ago, like a finished painting hanging in the dark. But that's not true. The universe isn't finished. It's still painting itself, still breathing, still blooming in every direction. When a star dies, it doesn't vanish into nothing. Its light may fade, Its body may collapse, but the story continues in a different form. Its ashes scatter through space, carried by winds of radiation and time, drifting through nebulae like whispers. Somewhere those ashes settle, mixing with other remnants, becoming new clouds of dust and gas. And within those clouds, new stars ignite. Every star that dies lights another's path. It's a quiet exchange, a cosmic conversation across billions of years. Stars are born, they live, they die, and in their dying, they give birth to others. Galaxies evolve the same way. They collide, merge, stretch, and reshape themselves. Even black holes, those dark centers of unyielding gravity, are part of it. They consume, yes, but they also give, bending light, shaping galaxies, influencing everything around them. The universe, in its essence, is change itself. It doesn't hold still. It doesn't cling. It transforms. And maybe that's the secret we forget, that the same principle shaping galaxies also shapes us. The atoms in your body, the ones in your hands, your heart, your eyes, were once part of a star that burned, collapsed, and scattered across the universe. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen you breathe, all of it has been through countless transformations before it became you. You are, in every sense, the continuation of that becoming, and like the universe, you are still changing. You shed cells, you change thoughts, you lose versions of yourself and grow new ones. You end, and you begin again, over and over. Sometimes you mistake that movement for loss, but it's just the rhythm of existence. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is gone. There's a strange comfort in realizing that even endings are forms of continuation, that every collapse carries within it the seed of rebirth. The universe teaches that gently, if you know how to listen. When a star explodes, it's not an ending, it's a transfer. When galaxies collide, it's not destruction, it's rearrangement. Even when light disappears into a black hole, it's not erased, it changes form. It's energy woven into space-time itself. It's the same with us. The moments you think are endings, heartbreaks, goodbyes, failures, they're not the final act. They're transformations in disguise. Pieces of your own cosmic cycle, quietly guiding you toward what you're becoming next. Look up at the stars some night, not just as points of light, but as echoes of this eternal motion. Every flicker you see is a moment in time, millions or billions of years old. You're not looking at what is. You're looking at what was. The sky above you is a living archive of change. Some of those stars have already died, their light still traveling through the dark to reach you. And yet, that light still warms something inside you. Proof that even what's gone can still give. The more you think about it, the more it feels like everything, every joy, every loss, every dream is part of one endless wave, moving through time without stopping. There's no fixed point, only flow, only the universe continuing its quiet work of becoming. And maybe that's why stillness feels so rare. Because deep down, everything within you is moving, even when you're resting. The atoms in your body vibrate. The electrons shift. The world turns. The galaxy spins. The cosmos expands. You are stillness only in appearance. Inside, you're the same rhythm as everything else. When you breathe, you're participating in the same act the stars perform: expansion, contraction, release. You inhale stardust, exhale transformation. It's not poetry, it's physics, but it's also meaning. Because when you start to see yourself as part of this endless becoming, the small fears begin to soften. The pressure to arrive somewhere, to stay the same, to hold on, it all fades. You realize that to live is to flow, to become, to let every ending teach you how to glow in a different form. The universe doesn't stop, because it can't. To stop would mean to die, and even death isn't an ending in its language. The stars understand that. The galaxies know it. Even the void respects it. Everything continues in its own quiet way. And maybe the reason you're here, listening, breathing, wondering, is because some part of you remembers that truth. Some part of you still carries the rhythm of the first light, still feels the pulse of becoming. Maybe you came here not to find stillness, but to remember that stillness and motion are the same thing, that to be alive is to be part of the universe's infinite unfolding. So rest here for a moment, in the quiet knowing that you've never stopped becoming, that you are and always have been part of something that cannot end. Somewhere in the dark quiet of the galaxy, a star flickers again. The same one we began with, the one that puzzled astronomers, that stirred questions across the world. Its light, faint and irregular, continues to pulse across the endless night. And now, after everything we've seen, the births, the deaths, the collapses, and the rebirths, we return to it. It's still there, still breathing its light into the fabric of space. Only now we see it differently. We no longer ask what's wrong with it. We ask instead what it's trying to say. Maybe it was never a mystery to be solved, but a rhythm to be understood. Because stars don't just exist, they express. Every pulse, every shimmer, every uneven glow is a whisper of physics, yes, but also of memory, of cycles within cycles. Perhaps the flickering is not a malfunction at all. Perhaps it's breathing, the slow inhale and exhale of something far larger than we can measure. For years, telescopes turned toward it, watching, waiting, recording. Data streamed in numbers, wavelengths, patterns. But there's something no data can fully capture, the feeling of witnessing something ancient speak in light, of realizing that what we once called a problem might just be a different kind of harmony. You can imagine it, can't you? That quiet pulse, a heartbeat written in photons, echoing across 1,400 light years. A star that doesn't shine the way others do. A star that dares to waver, to pause, to dim, not out of weakness, but because it's part of a deeper rhythm we haven't yet learned to hear. And maybe that's why it feels familiar. Because you, too, have moments like that, when your own light flickers, when you pull inward, when the world around you doesn't understand. Maybe those are not moments of fading, but of breathing. Maybe you're not breaking down, you're realigning, recalibrating, preparing for the next rise. Everything in the universe breathes. Galaxies inhale starlight and exhale creation. Nebulae gather dust, then scatter it again. Even time itself seems to expand and contract with the weight of gravity. So why would a star, or you, be any different? There's a strange kind of grace in the flicker. It reminds us that perfection is not steady light, it's motion. It's the pulse between what is and what could be. It's the uneven rhythm of something alive. Astronomers once thought the flicker meant the star was dying. But maybe death is the wrong word. Maybe it's just transformation. The star changes its song, its brightness, its form, but it never truly stops being. It only becomes something else. And when you look at it now, through the telescope of memory, you realize that it was never the flicker that made it different. It was the story the flicker told. A story about how even the smallest fluctuations in light can reveal something vast and unseen. You start to wonder how many other stars out there are trying to tell us something we don't yet know how to hear. How many are whispering secrets, not in words, but in the language of silence and shimmer? How many are breathing in rhythms that mirror our own? Because that's what this all comes down to: connection. Between atoms, between hearts, between stars. We are built from the same dust, carried by the same currents, bound by the same invisible pull toward becoming. Every flicker out there mirrors one in here. Every pause in light reflects a pause in life. And so, when you close your eyes tonight and think of that distant star, don't see it as fading. See it as resting. See it as inhaling before the next bright exhale. See it as part of a universe that never stops moving, never stops creating, never stops reminding us that even silence has a pulse. Maybe that's the message it's been sending all along, that the universe doesn't speak in certainty, but in wonder. It doesn't repeat. It evolves. It flickers, pauses, and glows again. It's teaching us not to fear the dark spaces between brightness, because those are where new light is born. And when that light finally reaches us, after traveling for centuries through dust and void, it carries not just information, but invitation to look up, to listen, to remember that not all that dims is lost. Sometimes it's just beginning again. We've found millions of stars, countless beautiful burning suns scattered across the sky. But every so often, one reminds us that the universe is still full of secrets, and maybe so are we. The light from that star is still traveling, even now, as you listen, across cold oceans of space, through clouds of dust and silence. Its photons keep moving, delicate messengers from a past long gone, carrying the memory of something that once was alive with fire. And that thought alone changes something in you. Because if that flicker, that momentary pulse, can cross 1400 years of darkness and still reach your eyes tonight, what does that say about the things you send into the world? The words, the gestures, the quiet acts of kindness no one else saw. Maybe they travel, too, in their own way, in their own invisible spectrum. Maybe nothing ever really disappears. We tend to think of light as instant, the switch, the glow, the immediate illumination. But cosmic light isn't like that. It's patient. It moves at its own pace, unhurried, crossing ages without asking to be seen. And when it finally arrives, it's no longer just light, it's history, memory turned radiant. Perhaps that's what makes the universe feel so strangely personal. It's not that it's watching you, it's that it's reflecting you, showing you the slow truth of everything that exists, that what begins must transform, and what transforms must, in some small way, endure. You think again of that flicker, the one that puzzled the world, that drew people to their telescopes late at night. At first, they thought something was wrong, a malfunction, a dimming, but now, after this long journey through the stars, you can almost hear it differently, like the faint rhythm of breathing in sleep. It's so easy to misread stillness as absence. silence as emptiness, dimming as decline. But the universe has always used the quietest moments to prepare for its brightest acts. Stars, before they ignite, spend eons gathering themselves. Planets, before they bloom with life, sleep in coal dust. Even your own heart pauses. Between beats, a fraction of stillness that makes motion possible. So maybe that's what this flicker was. Not a disappearance, but a pause. Not a death, but a sigh. The universe taking a slow, steady breath. And as you watch it, or imagine it, glowing faintly in the black, you begin to feel the rhythm align with your own. Each inhale, a rise of light. Each exhale, a dimming. Not opposites, but parts of the same movement. Life and rest, fire and calm, beginning and return. It's humbling, isn't it? To think that in all the vastness, in all that cosmic noise, one small star can still make you feel something. It's not the brightness that moves you. It's the persistence, the quiet refusal to stop shining, even when it flickers, even when the dark presses close. That's what the universe has been whispering all along. That everything, no matter how grand or small, belongs to a rhythm greater than itself. And within that rhythm, nothing is truly lost. You can almost feel it, the soft vibration beneath the silence, the pulse of something infinite. The same pulse that moved through the first fires of creation, that shaped galaxies and atoms and hearts alike. It moves through the flicker of a distant star, and it moves through you right now. So when you lie down tonight and close your eyes, maybe you'll remember that flicker. Not as an anomaly, but as a reminder that light, even when it falters, still travels. That silence isn't the end. That the universe, in all its vastness, keeps breathing, keeps becoming, keeps reaching for something just beyond what it already is. And maybe, just maybe, so do you, because we've seen millions of stars, steady, blazing, perfect in their brightness. But every so often, one behaves differently. One flickers. One hesitates. One reminds us that the universe doesn't seek perfection. It seeks continuity, becoming, and in that gentle pulse of difference, in that faint shimmer of imperfection, we find something deeply human, the beauty of not being done yet. We've found millions of stars. But this one reminds us that the universe is still learning how to shine, just like us. The flicker lingers, long after the moment has passed. It's faint now, almost invisible to the naked eye. But once you've seen it, like a whisper that settles into memory, like a dream you keep revisiting, not because you understand it, but because it feels like it understands you. And that's the strange thing about the universe. It doesn't speak in words, or gestures, or languages. It speaks in light, in rhythm. In moments like these, small, almost unnoticeable pauses that echo through the heart of everything. You don't need to translate them. You just need to feel them. Maybe that's why we keep looking up. Not to escape Earth, but to find reflections of what already lives inside us. Every flickering star, every collapsing nebula, every newborn sun, they're mirrors, reminding us that creation and destruction aren't opposites. They're partners in the same dance. That distant star, the one that puzzled astronomers, the one whose light trembled like a heartbeat. It isn't just a scientific mystery anymore. It's a story, a cosmic lullaby. You can almost imagine it now, still pulsing out there in the vastness. Each shimmer, a soft exhale of something ancient. each dim, a breath drawn inward. And maybe, if you listen closely enough, you realize it's not the star that's breathing, it's the universe itself. Because what if every flicker, every collapse, every rebirth is the cosmos inhaling and exhaling across eternity? What if we, the watchers, the dreamers, the late-night stargazers, are just another rhythm within that breath? You inhale, you exhale, and in that fragile balance between the two, you feel it, the same quiet pulse that hums through galaxies and atoms alike. It isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It just is. The mind tries to make sense of it, to name it, to fit it into the tidy boxes of logic. But some truths refuse to be pinned down. They live between the lines, between seconds, between stars. And in those spaces, where certainty fades into stillness, something softer begins to speak. You begin to remember how it all started, the first moments of this long journey, when you were invited into silence, before time began, when there was nothing but potential waiting to become. Back then, it felt like a beginning, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was a return, because every ending, if you slow down enough, carries the shape of something that's coming next. The universe never really stops. It just changes the way it moves. Look at the star again, just once more, in your mind's eye. The flicker no longer feels like a mystery. It feels like recognition, like it's saying, I am still here. I was never gone, and somehow that truth ripples through you. The way light ripples through space, the way memory ripples through time, you realize that you, too, are a flicker, brief, beautiful, and luminous in your own way. You've burned, dimmed, reignited countless times. You've changed shape, and yet the essence, the light within, remains. Maybe the universe isn't out there, after all. Maybe it's here, behind your ribs, pulsing softly with every breath. And maybe that's what the star was trying to show you, that in the grand orchestra of existence, your light counts too. It may seem small, but small lights make the dark less lonely. So let it flicker, let it breathe, let it be imperfect. Because in that imperfection lies the real story, the one the cosmos keeps telling over and over, through every spark, every silence, every dream of something more. And as your eyes grow heavy and the world around you softens, the star fades gently back into the distance. Its light stretches onward into tomorrow, into forever. You can almost feel it moving slow, steady, unstoppable. Somewhere, far away, a new sun is being born. Somewhere else, another fades into dust. And in between, there's this, the quiet, endless hum of everything existing all at once. You take one more breath. The air feels calm now, weightless, still. Before time began, there was a stillness, and within it, everything waited to become. And maybe now you understand. For now, you can rest. The stars will keep the watch. Their light will guide you through the quiet, through the dark, through the spaces in between. You are made of their dust, their breath. Their glow dots sleep in their arms. You've already come home. It still is. It always will be, because we've seen millions of stars. But every so often, one reminds us the universe is still full of secrets.